All right. Hello, everybody. Let's start with a couple of quick introductions. Rick, I think everyone knows who you are over the last 20 minutes, but let's hear you, Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh Bernstein. I lead the Media Network Digital Out of Home for Western Union. Been in ad tech, MarTech, long enough for my career to be drinking. So there's that. I tried to get out a couple of times, and it just, it brings you back.
Welcome back. Okay, so we're glad to have you here. We are going to talk all about the next level down here in terms of metrics that matter. Rick, you talked about an ecosystem that encompasses not only digital out of home, but also traditional. And I want to understand, are those, if you take a step back, what in your brief does the role of out of home play against social, SEM, all the other channels that marketing has to choose from? How do you write a brief that is balanced and delivers against all of these objectives, yet doesn't just check the box? Let's start there.
Wow, big question, lots of different answers. Broadly, the role of out of home is proof of life, right? The brand exists, it's there in the public realm, you can see it, feel it, touch it, and it's going to put wind at the back of your other channels. Now, that can manifest in all kinds of ways. Retail targeting, event targeting, general awareness, and so on and so forth. But fundamentally, it's there to stand tall and make a statement that the brand exists in and of itself.
Josh, from a performance marketing lens, when you include digital out of home in your media mix, what is the threshold for success? Let's jump right into it. Tell me what metrics must be hit to be justified.
That's a great question. For Western Union, almost everything is measured on direction towards revenue. Are we getting more customers? Are we getting existing customers to come back? Are we converting customers from retail to digital? Are customers doing both digital and retail? So to try to really identify what that looks like, we're trying to figure that out. We're looking at transaction data. We're looking at our customer profile data. We're pulling out transactions of stores that have screens versus stores that don't. We're looking at the history of those screens to go back long enough that we can see all these other macro trends, hopefully remove them and see what is the impact of having digital out of home in our mix. And then can you translate that right to, and this is the interesting thing, you have screens, you have digital out of home. It's really about brand, it's about messaging. But you want to correlate it directly to a transaction. It's not one-to-one, so it's not like they're on their phone and they clicked on and you can know who it is. We can take a digital out of home audience and turn it to digital, create an audience and retarget them, and then bring them into digital. But then the digital is probably taking all the credit. So it's interesting to try to figure that out. So I'm a data guy. I look through the data and try to figure it out.
You just make guesses?
Educated guesses.
Interesting. Okay, so you have a complex world, literally the world that you are dealing with. So talk to me a little bit about measurement among markets. How does that differ here in the States versus your international markets, regionally? How do you think about kind of how attribution needs to change depending on locale?
Well, access to data is really what the challenge is. So, and integration and the technology that we're using. Like some of our screens are on one ad server. Some of them are run through tags that are run on a different system on screens in another country. So try to bring that all together, to try to pull these reports and compile them in a way that we can look at them holistically, that I could pivot it, create a Power BI, and switch by country and see how something's doing. And there's so much data. It's coming from so many systems, not just from our out-of-home software, but from our internal platforms as well. And then, there's always a language issue and multiple language, and we're multicultural. So, to track it down to a campaign level for something that's one-to-many, for something that is more of awareness focused, even though it's driving direct influence on our customers. It's a lot to process.
I imagine. Okay, Rick, kicking it over to you from an attribution perspective. How do marketers plan an integrated campaign and appropriately set their expectations for what they should or should not be measuring, what they can and cannot measure?
For an out-of-home campaign as standalone or as
Well, either or, right?
either or? You know, I think that's been one of our challenges is setting those benchmarks. We really don't have them. I think if you came in and asked us the question, like reverse that question and say, okay, how much do I need to spend in Denver over 90 days to get a 20% lift in website visits without a home? We 12, I don't know. I don't know what that answer would be. Like, you have an idea of what it would take to do a good job in those markets. You have an idea of what it would take to have a strong presence relative to whatever their campaign parameters are. But it's not predictive by any means. And so what we found is that the measurement we can achieve, whether it's app downloads or website activity or footfall or any of those, is directional. And it's not really real time enough. It's delayed most of the time in some way. So it's helpful if you have a long-term investment cycle so you can inform and optimize over time. But it's a little opaque. It's not super clear.
Now, Josh, you have the benefit of more real-time access to your data, right? Adrian said earlier he's always trying to push clients to give data more frequently so you can increase the cadence and get more regular real-time results on your campaigns, right? Josh, I'm curious, how do you balance brand metrics like awareness attention with bottom funnel outcomes, and how frequently are you measuring those kind of different outputs from the funnel?
Well, it's interesting what you said and kind of the way the last question was asked about like standalone. Like digital out of home isn't standalone. Even if it's the only campaign you're running, it's not standalone, right? So you see the brand on the screen, digital out of home screen in a store, in a window, on a billboard, and then you go at some point on your phone, on your computer or whatever, and then you search it. Whether it's a search campaign, a direct campaign, paid search, maybe you did display, maybe they found their way directly to your website, then the journey continues. It's about the customer journey. So it's really figuring out like, you know, and I also do the publisher side, so I'm my own worst enemy, but I want to prove that digital out of home is impactful on its own, stands on its own. So I almost have to ignore that there's a whole other experience. I put screens in the store, I put ads on screens, I see a raise in customer visits, I see more transactions, I take all the credit. Right? I just ignore the rest, everything else the company is doing and say my screens are doing all of this, which clearly can't be the case, right? I mean, that even goes down to our customer service. I put a great campaign out there, I get customers in, and then if we don't have the rest of the business doing what they do and doing it well, the customer's not coming back, right? So it's part of this whole journey. So while again, because I have to justify the digital out of home program, I say all the great things that digital home does. On the other side, I'm trying to collaborate with all these other departments to figure out how to do it better. Right? With marketing, we're just launched about 117 localized marketing campaigns for 2,500 screens in 3 different countries to have better local messaging. That's a huge effort on the ad operations side. It's a huge operation on the creative side. And probably next month it'll be a huge effort on the analytics side. That's just, you know, you look at the data.
Yeah.
And then you have it tell you whatever story you want.
Okay, so speaking of the story, when you're reporting to leadership, what are the KPIs that they find the most flashy, aside from, you know, money orders?
Well, I mean, if you know, going back to think about a direct response. So we had some challenges with one of our agents. They had some financial stuff. Their store shut down for a couple of weeks. So literally within 24 hours, we had messaging on our screens in those stores, redirecting them to another location, maps, Huge effort on our creative team to get those out there. And then as soon as we got the stores to reopen, we're putting new messaging, new promotions, bring them back in. And we're tracking it week by week as we open more stores, and we're getting this truly direct response. Customer retention, customer movement, we can track the customers and their transactions. So we can literally see that we kept our customers as all this turmoil happened. And that's direct performance, right? So like a traditional campaign, you can't really do that, right? If we go back to Chuck E. Cheese, you put a huge billboard, looks great, direct them to the website, everything looks great. Your kid's birthday is not for 6 months. Who's gonna look at data for 6 months to see, like, I'm gonna attribute this birthday party in October because I had a billboard in February, right? Nobody does that. Well, I do that, but that's a different story. Because I wanna show, like, this is a longer play. This is the customer journey. The customer journey, like, our customer doesn't come in every single day, but they may walk past the store every day. So you just keep putting that message on there.
It's a long game, huh?
Yep.
Rick, you work with a variety of different brands, and you probably see this story from a different angle. Talk to me about how you would answer that question. What are the metrics that get the most attention?
It depends on whatever their problem is at the time, so it varies, right? But generally, what we report on that's, I guess, most popular that they want to hear the most of is website activity and how out-of-home is impacting that. And usually we're buying multiple format out-of-home campaigns, so it's not just digital out-of-home. But I think what would be useful and what I hope, like if I could wave a magic wand, I'd love to be able to prove the impact of out-of-home in all its forms on the lower funnel in general, but over time. You know, to your comment, right, the delay. Because what we do is we say, well, we ran this campaign, and here's what happened. We're analyzing that in a bubble that we know it's not in. We know there's all these other factors around it from other channels and from history and brand sentiment and all of that. And that's kind of conveniently ignored. And then we just look at the results of that one particular investment. And I think it would be really, really valuable to marketers to understand if I spend this money now in out-of-home, again, in whatever manifestation, that this will have a long-term echo. This will have a long-term effect. And understand in what way. And there are brands who just buy it, right? They just believe it. They have the leap of faith. They understand it. They've done it over and over again. Or categories like, go tell a luxury brand or a fashion advertiser not to be in New York during Fashion Week. Or somebody at a studio or a streamer to not go all over LA and New York to put butts in seats when they're launching a movie. They don't need research to prove that.
Yeah.
So I think if there's some way we could validate that leap of faith, it would probably relieve us of trying to make data work that we're never really going to be able to make work in the attribution models we have today.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that validation piece. So talk to me about testing and learning. For both of you, how do you test and validate digital out-of-home before you scale it? It can be very expensive, right? So where do you start?
I'm trying to decide how to answer that question. As the supply side of that, no, jump in. Trust me, it works. It's great. You know, we're thinking about, or not really thinking, we're planning on entering more of the direct model. And if I think about a contractor who might want to buy a screen or 3 or 5 screens, small deals in their neighborhood, if they put it on there for a week, are they going to see a huge impact? No, probably not, right? If you see, you know, if you think about this at the larger scale, if you saw a big billboard with a red and orange silver chip bag, they don't even need to put the logo on it. You know what it is, right? You see it over and over and over again, so you really need that time. So like, well, what is the minimum buy that we should offer them? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? A year? Like, you know, I think about at home when I see the plumbing ads and things like that. Like, you see them over and over and over again. So even if I'm not thinking about a plumbing problem, when the plumbing problem happens, what do I remember? Who do I call? So that's kind of the message that we have to say, like, this isn't a short-term deal. This is a long-term one. So if you're going to measure it, if you want to see success from it, you want to see performance, get it out there. You will see the direct performance when that is needed. When your product is needed, they will remember your name. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. And then trying to apply that to every campaign. What are you looking for? What is your message? What is your goal? Inform, awareness, traditional advertising terms that you use, like who are you trying to reach? When do you want to reach them? What is the expected outcome, right? If it's a direct transaction, that's one thing. If it's customer lifetime value, that's a different one. Are we trying to get our customers back? Are we trying to get in new customers? Are we trying to do both at the same time? So everyone is different. So try to figure it out.
Rick, thoughts?
I think when brands test out of home, they underinvest. That's probably the biggest challenge I see. They don't do enough of it for long enough. And it's heartbreaking, honestly, for our planners. They're like, oh my gosh, we have a plan we know will work. And then it's clipped, it's too small, it's too short. Or there's a misalignment between the creative messaging and then the expected KPI. And you'll see that sometimes where it's like you put it all together, and maybe even you do have enough term and enough weight to make it, to be confident the campaign will work. And at the last minute, there's a narrative that comes from the brand that says, well, we need to prove this works. Let's put a QR code in the bottom corner and track that. So I think, and that's obviously a big misalignment, and that never works. So my message would be invest enough long enough.
That's good. That's good advice. Rick, how about when we talked earlier, you talked about building an experience, right? Out of home should feel like an experience. And how do you, if you have a marketer who has given you unlimited budget, they're like, you know what, Rick, you know what you're doing. Here's my checking account. Write yourself a check. Do whatever you want. How do you build the ideal out of home experience?
Well, first you celebrate for a little while. That's never happened, by the way.
No? Nobody's doing that?
Unlimited. Look, I think what you want to do is have multiple touch points. That's the experience. You want to make sure that you've created enough critical mass for it to work. You want to show a big, my favorite approach is what I call the anchor and the ripple, which is the big anchor moment, big wall, big something, train station domination, something like that, that's tent pole, and then the ripple effect of that throughout the market, which gets amplified by other formats, usually street level of some sort, high volume, high frequency formats. And then if you kind of anchor, ripple, and then a little bit of attitude, wild posting, projections, digital out of home showing up in unexpected places, a little bit of surprise. I think a mix of all of that. And then most importantly, really understand the message style. So I think that's also a part of the planning that gets missed. Is if you know in advance, for example, this is an unknown brand with zero street equity, and the message is going to be slightly complex, that's going to inform the inventory you select in a big way. And I'll see that happen a lot where it's like, I can see why they bought a certain board because it's on a big freeway and it's got a lot of impressions, but it's an unknown brand with a complex message and it's a cross-read, and I'm not going to have a chance to consume that. There's no alignment between message, style, and environment. So I try to make sure that was really aligned. And then I would celebrate again.
Josh, are you ever going to get unlimited budget?
No, and it's funny, if you got that once, then your leadership's like, are we going to do it again? How did you get that? And let's repeat it. That was an unlimited budget. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Okay, I have one more question before we go to the audience for Q&A. What is one thing that's missing from our digital out-of-home planning cycles? If you could give advice, one last piece of advice to folks, what would that be?
I think it was just like the creative, like thinking about how is it going to be perceived? Is it a call to action, right? If you want this to be a performance campaign, there has to be a call to action, right? So thinking about where you're putting the ad and what do you want the ad to do. Like Western Union has screens in, it all sounds Western Union, but our screens are in grocery stores, drugstores, convenience stores, dress shops, you name it. If you try to put the same ad in all those places, you're going to get totally different responses. So like if I'm in a grocery store, it makes more sense to have a performance-driven campaign, buy more drinks, get more C4, you'll see that direct influence. Yep. But if you're on a urban panel, you're seeing it as you walk by, you're not going to there's no place to pick up the drink. But the next time you go to the store and then you see it, it's going to look familiar, right? Especially if you go long term, you're passing that screen and every day you see C4, 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 then you get the explosion. So it's aligning the creative with the experience, or making the creative part of the experience.
Makes sense.
The only thing I would add to build on that is always start with is that it's not about the brand, it's not about the DSP, it's not about the CPMs, the medium isn't homogeneous. It's not about us, it's about the public. And if we start there every time, that's going to guide us.
I love that. Beautiful. Okay, audience, questions. What do you have? Right over here.
I also just want to say, Josh, I did catch your C4, 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 then the explosion, and I felt like that deserved a laugh, but the room was a little quiet.
It was a delayed response.
I think my resting heart rate is like 120 thanks to this C4, so I'm going to try to get this question out. But hi, Amanda. I work at Vistar. I am curious. I think in other channels, measuring a campaign is kind of a standard process that you do, and if you get certain results, the reaction is, okay, we change strategy if need be. I tend to see that in digital out of home, when results aren't necessarily what is expected or desired, that's not necessarily the first response. It's, well, out of home and data and measurement is not real, so we're just going to pull budget, right? And I'm curious what you think needs to happen, because there's obviously different measurement providers and different methodologies, but just as a whole, what do you think is going to be the most successful way as an industry to reframe the question from, is the data real, to what can this data teach us? And in this data ecosystem, there's going to be margin of error, but that doesn't mean it's negligible or not useful.
That is a great question from someone who's clearly in data all the time. Is it the hypothesis or the results that's the most important? And figuring out, and I think this is the big question. This is what I'm trying to figure out. Not just me, I'm sure a lot of people are. Like, what story is the data telling me? Right? I can go in there and have the data tell me whatever I want it to say, but how do I get a view where the data is telling me what is happening? How do I visualize it? How do I get the right data feeds? How do I merge what the campaign is doing? Where is it doing it? Where is it performing with the intended goal of the campaign? And then if I get enough learning from the data, I can adjust what the campaign is doing. But if I go it the other way around and I say the campaign isn't doing what I thought it was supposed to be doing, it must not be working, so then I have to change strategy. Or, as Amanda pointed out, it's not doing what I thought it was supposed to be doing, so I'm just going to turn it off because I don't know what to do. It doesn't mean it wasn't doing anything. It just means we don't have the data to say this is actually really successful. But we just don't know what to look at to prove it. And I think that's really where we are for digital out of home, is we don't know what data to show that says this is a great medium. And I think that's what the industry is looking for.
Well said.
That answer your question?
I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, Rick, Josh, Kate, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.